Why is good politics bad economics? A question that seems so simple is actually one that's very hard to answer. Before we can say why, we need to ensure we have a good understanding of what politics and economics actually are. Politics is defined as the practice or study of the art and science of forming, directing, and administrating states and other political units. Basically, the activities related with the government of a certain country or area. Economics, on the other hand, is the buying and selling of products and services within a country or area. We quite often find countries, like our own, who have good political aspects but are lacking greatly in economics. One of the reasons this occurs is due to misaligned incentives that politicians have, and how they often focus on larger topics and don't acknowledge less public ones. You will most likely see every politician talking about things like taxes, marriage rights, and international relations, but they have a much lower focus on things like government spending. How can politicians focus on the key issues that are affecting citizens when they spend most of their time campaigning? Politicians are more concerned with winning an election or pleasing the public than making big changes that could benefit other issues, like the economy. An example of this can be seen in BC, where the argument for a minimum wage has been going on for way too long. In an attempt to please the public, Christy Clark raised the minimum wage despite the clear economic issues that this would cause. A wage increase led to fewer job opportunities since business owners can't afford to hire more employees. First-time job seekers are now competing with more experienced workers and are often overlooked in the process. Even though those who are working are getting a higher wage, less people are being hired. Now, if you combine the negative impacts of these decisions made with politicians who wish to please the public, you have a government that takes minimal action. And this is just one of the many reasons that cause successful politics to often result in poor economics.
Hi, I'm a politician. I should enact legislations that are for the best of the American people as a whole. However, our system sometimes allows me to make decisions that may in fact be detrimental to our economy.
I'm a corporation. It's in my best interest to lobby towards regulations on business that increase my own profit without necessarily benefiting our nation's economy. You see, my company is based in the United States, and a competitor is based in Austria. I lobby for increased tariffs on cars imported from Austria. I argue that American companies will provide more jobs for the middle class. However, cars are effectively now more expensive, which discourages spending. Plus, I now have the options to skimp on the quality of my cars. Clearly, not everybody wins when I put my own interests first.
This is called rent-seeking, and it is one example of how we politicians can do negative work on our economy.
Another problematic practice is law growing. This is when politicians trade each other's votes. For example, today in Congress, 2 pieces of legislation are going to be voted on. One concerns funding for state prisons, and another concerns funding for post offices. If I'm more interested with getting the bill concerning prison reform passed, then both of us will vote towards that piece of legislation.
Right, but only if in return she promises to vote against the legislation regarding post offices with me.
Law growing severely degrades the value of votes. As politicians, we're using our votes as strategic pawns, instead of considering how the 2 legislations truly affect American taxpayers.
Finally, many voters are unaware of the constant expenditures our government makes towards dispersed costs.
I lobby for the tourism industry to receive government funding for a new office.
My special interest group needs to meet $2 million from Washington.
I'm lobbying for the government to hand over a few million for the Society of Endangered American Birds.
Dispersed costs are relatively small expenditures, say several million each. However, there are tons and tons of these small programs, and these thousands of millions add up fast. They are largely overlooked by the voters because they seem so insignificant next to the big issues. Thus, they keep being funded and collectively draining government money. Although our government is among the best in the world, its fundamental structure encourages many practices that have led to a disappointing economy. Perhaps, if we focus on fixing the problems inherent in politics, we can build an economic system that benefits us all.
Time and time again, throughout the past several decades, North American governments have intervened in an attempt to improve the social and economic life of their people. Yet, even with all their efforts, social and economic problems are still abundant on a massive scale. As a result, Canada and the United States understand one thing: government intervention can be ineffective and misplaced in many ways. This can be described as government failure, which has many central causes. However, today we will be uncovering one of the most controversial of all: how politicians and administrating bodies act in self-interest rather than in the interest of the general public that they are supposed to represent. As a result of this, inefficient policies may arise, causing damaging and long-term consequences for the economy and society. Although many people see the government as an entity motivated to serve the public by doing what is morally right, it's important to critically analyze their actions. The term corrupt politician is loosely utilized in today's society. Even though the term can be quite far-fetched, it does hold some merit. Some politicians and administrators can be manipulated by their desire to be re-elected. This causes them to support policies that are popular or profitable for certain groups, but are not best for society or the broader public. The issue of ineffective policies and a weakening economy then lies by how political parties are persuaded by special interest groups who only desire to further their own ambitions. If a political party is influenced enough to create policies to benefit a specific group of people, it's likely that the general public will suffer the consequences. For example, promising to boost the level of welfare in order to secure more votes in an election without a proper cost-benefit analysis can have devastating effects. Even though citizens who rely on welfare may see positives, many more citizens can suffer from weaker government services or higher taxes. In policies such as this, it's essential that all aspects are examined, but self-interest clouds that aspect. The costs of welfare would be diffused amongst the entire population, while the benefits are concentrated. Overall, a policy driven by the interest of oneself is generally not as effective as a policy created to benefit the whole economy and society. Unfortunately, the leaders of today's government are elected based on who can deliver the most inspirational political speech, not who can build the foundation for a booming economy. As one can see, due to the challenge of having honest politics coincide with a strong economic plan, North American governments still have a long way to go.